we thank you for this opportunity together to, in your name, to learn more about you, to discuss just how great you are, Lord God. And I ask that you would be in control from beginning to end. And I come against the spirit of distraction. Lord God, I thank you that we will be able to be attentive and hear what you have to say in this time. We thank you for this fellowship, and we cover it in the blood of Jesus. Satan, you are forbidden to operate. The spirit of retaliation is forbidden to operate. Lord God, we give you praise. We thank you that everyone's able to get on, and we're clear, and we can hear and everything. We love you, Lord, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, so I got a little quick story. Beforehand, so our neighbor that we thought was dead is not. I don't know the situation, what happened, but she was across the street 2 days ago, and she threw a TV out. It was like a 65-inch TV. She just had it by the curb. So we saw it, me and Hope, and I went across the street, and I was like, "Hey, what's wrong with this TV?" And she was like, "Oh, no, it's just nothing. It just has lines." And I was like, "Well, you mind if I look at it for you?" And she's like, "Well, you can have it." So we took it, we tested it. TV works fine. I mean, it has lines, but it's not unfixable. So I messed around with it, got it to operate. So free 65-inch TV. But when I was talking to her, she kind of walked up on me real quick, and there was this super evil presence about her. And it was, I don't know if you ever seen like the Left Behind movies. It's like the second one when he grabs Nikolai, or I think his name is Nikolai. He shakes his hand on the plane, and then his face turns into that distorted, demonic looking. It was like that, and it was real quick. But I saw it, and I kind of froze for a minute because I knew what I was looking at, but I guess I just wasn't expecting to encounter that with that encounter. So when I took the TV, I was like wiping it down, and I was like, you know what, God, I don't know what this is, but I'm just any entities and evil spirits that's attached to this, you know, I just banish in the name of Jesus. But it was real weird because the entire situation with her is we thought she got killed or murdered, rather. Well, I guess they're still being killed. And we didn't see her for almost a month, and then she just pops up, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm moving," and I don't know. It's just a weird situation. But amongst that, I was talking to this guy named Josh that I work with at Aldi, and he was talking about how much he dislikes the job, and I can see like the demonic forces going against him, because there's not a day that goes by that I clock in that the manager, the top manager, has something negative to say about him. And for some reason, he brings it to my attention. And I'm sure he's bringing it to other people's attention as well. But it's just weird that whatever he feels negative to say about Josh, he brings it to my attention. And of course, with that information, I don't tell Josh what the guy's saying, but I make Josh aware that, hey, you know, just be mindful of what you say around these people, because whatever is going on is obviously targeting you. And he was telling me some stuff that him and his newly wedded wife were struggling with yesterday. He's pretty open about it. Just a bunch of situations, and he was telling me how he just feels like he's not meant to be there for a long time, but he feels like he's there because God's teaching him something. And I've talked to KB about this, but at this point, I feel like the only reason I'm there is to help him get through the situations that he's going with his wife, that job, and kind of being that voice of reason that he needs. Because he told me, he grew up without his father, and by the time he met his father, it wasn't a good turnout. It wasn't a good relationship, and all that other stuff. So that's gonna go in with the lesson today. All that I mentioned. Today we're covering Genesis chapter 12 and 13, and I think I finally got my stride and my notes together to where it'll be a little more cohesive. I actually wrote down the chapter and the verses, so it's easier for me to go through these notes and not have to stumble all over the place. But at the beginning of chapter 12, it starts off by saying that the Lord told Abraham, get out of your country, away from your family and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And you and in you all families of the earth shall be blessed. So I read this a couple of times as I went through the next two, this chapter and chapter 13, and it's pretty laid out. God tells him, get up, get everything together, leave from your father's house, your country, away from your family, and go to a place that I'll show you. And you'll be a blessing, and you'll bless those who bless you, and you'll curse those, and God will curse those who curse him and bless those who bless him. And throughout these next couple verses, you'll see a prime example of how God's pretty straightforward in what he told Abram to do, and how Abram kind of misconstrues that, whether it be by fear, negligence, or just operating in his own knowledge. So it says in verse 4 of chapter 12 and 5 that Abram was 75 years when he departed from Haran. And at the end of everything, I wrote all the trip to where Abram went from these two chapters, so it'll be easier to convey. And then I also have a point with that. So he left Haran, and then he took his wife Sarah and his nephew Lot. They took all their possessions and all the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to the land of Canaan. So they started off by going to the land of Canaan, and we know that Canaan, the actual child via Ham, was cursed by Noah. So I believe that that land was also cursed as well, because there can't be a person that is cursed that's over a godly land. It doesn't happen. So I'm looking at it like, why is God telling Noah to go through these cursed lands? Why is he leading him from, I would assume, to be a pretty lavish life, because it says that he grabbed all his possessions and his wife and all the people that they acquired in Haran and departed to go to the land of Canaan. And if you look at it from your standpoint as a human being, there's times in life where you feel like you're pretty comfortable, you feel like you're pretty set up, you've established yourself in whatever career that you've established in. You have nice cars, you have clothes, you have food, all your bills are paid. If you want to go to a different city, different state, or whatever for vacation, you can do that. But then guy comes in and he's like, all right, well, I want you to leave everything that you're comfortable with behind and go to this place that you don't know where you're going, but I'm going to show you where you're going. And that kind of sets up what's going to be happening here. So Abram's 75 years old. So you would have to think he's pretty set in his ways for 75. Granted, they lived for a very long time back then, but 75 years, just think about it. 75 years, you have no children, you're married, and you're just taking care of livestock, building riches, just living your life. And then all of a sudden God's like, all right, I got a plan for you. And then we go further down to chapter 12, verse 10 through 14. And it starts to tell you that he passes through a couple other lands. And I'll get to that point in a minute because I have it all mapped out to where he went. But, God tells him that he's going to give Abram and his descendants the land in chapter 7. But in chapter 10, it says that there was a great famine, or a famine in Egypt where they had went. And obviously Abram knew that his wife Sarah was beautiful. And this is where he starts to operate in fear. It says that he tells Sarah to tell pretty much everyone that they meet that they're not married and she's his sister. But if you look at it, starts in verse 12. It says, therefore it will happen when the Egyptians see you that they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. So God had pretty straightforward instructions. He said, I will show you where you're going to go. I'll lead you there. Leave everything, your nations, your father's house behind, and just go. But Abram, in his own wisdom, as we see in verse 12 through 12 and 13, that instead of trusting God to be who God is, he doesn't lie. He asks his wife to lie for him so that his life will be saved. But nowhere in the text before that does God say, lie to save your own life. He just says, go, and I'll show you where you need to end up. So if we go further down, you got 15 pretty much all the way through 20. It says that the princes of Pharaoh also saw her, Sarah, and commanded her to Pharaoh. Pretty much commanded her means to take her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh, and he treated Abraham well as his livestock, his sheep, oxen, donkeys, his servants. But it says, but the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? I may have taken her as my wife. Now, therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go and get out of Egypt. Now, there is a specific point that I want to, let me pull it up so you can see it. Let's share the screen so you guys can see it. And let me know when you can see it.
I can see it. It's just kind of small.
All right, let me see if I can zoom that bad boy in. See it now? Better, rather. Everybody that can see it, that can see it pretty much. So I got to thinking. In the beginning of the chapter, it says that God tells Abram that I'll bless those who bless you and I'll curse those who curse you. So taking another man's wife, stealing another man's wife is considered theft, adultery, which is seen as a curse. So obviously, because of that, regardless of what Abraham did, lied, cheated, stole, whatever, God already said what he was going to do. So God had to complete what he said he was going to do, because once God says something, that's it's set in stone, because he can't lie, because lying is sinful. So therefore, he had to uphold his part of that covenant, even though Abraham, I don't want to use the word force God to do it, but because of Abraham's lack of transparency, we'll use that word, he caused other people to be hurt and cursed because of a situation that he decided. But not only did Abram decide to pretty much put his wife in a compromising situation, he made her lie about it, because it doesn't say that I'll tell them that you're my sister. He says, please tell them that you're my sister, so I'll live because of you. So it's that classic men not taking responsibility, being the head of the household. I mean, we saw the same thing with Adam. Instead of rebuking eating the apple, he ate it because Eve, his wife, offered it to him. But in this situation, it's reversed. So Abram would be more akin to Eve, because he fell for not so much temptation in the regard of falling for temptation, but operating in his own knowledge. And if you look at it, he still got punished because the Pharaoh didn't, it didn't tell us that the Pharaoh got mad at Sarah. He got mad at Abram, which means at some point, somebody had to reveal that she was his wife, whether it was Sarah that said it, or Abram that finally confessed it. But either way, somebody at some point revealed that they were married to each other. And if you look at it, it says, yes, Jesus was a descendant of Abraham, as recorded in the Bible's Gospel of Matthew. So, as far as, I think that's all I need to do as far as sharing that. Stop sharing. Okay, let's get back to this. And then, so I started digging a little deeper. Why? Why did God curse or allow those plagues to come into the Pharaoh for not even sleeping with Sarah, but pretty much preventing it from happening? Because if Jesus has to come from a certain bloodline in order to save humanity, that bloodline at some point has to be untampered. So if Sarah would have slept with the Pharaoh, that would have been a tampered bloodline, because not only would she have given birth to the children she would have given birth to by being with Abraham, potentially she would have had children, or not even had children, but been violated by the Pharaoh, thus making her blood impure to carry the lineage of Jesus as it went down through Abraham, David, and everyone else. So I don't know if that's the reason, but that's what I feel is the reason, because it to me it makes sense, and it also makes sense to where our disobedience also causes other people to endure pains that they shouldn't even be involved with. Especially when God gave Abram a clear-cut instructions on what to do, and he didn't do it. He deviated from what he was supposed to do, and not only was the people that unknowingly were pretty much tricked were punished for it, he got kicked out of Egypt. So he had to delay wherever God was taking him because he got his wife to lie about a situation that he didn't trust God in. He trusted God enough to take him out of Haran, but he didn't trust God enough that he would keep him safe from the potential threat of him possibly getting killed. So he took it upon himself, his own knowledge, his own quote unquote wisdom, to lie about it. So we go a little further. He gets kicked out of Egypt, and prior to going to Egypt, in chapter 12, verse 8, it says, and he moved from there, which was the land. He moved from Shechem to a mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. So he's in between two countries, and he pitched his tent there. So he set up camp essentially. So when he got kicked out of Egypt, it tells us in chapter 13, verse 3, that he went back there after being kicked out of Egypt. He also had set up an altar there because God told him, I will give your descendants this land. And so it comes to pass later on down the road in chapter 13, verse 5 through 12, pretty much. Lot was there, and Lot had his flock and his herdsmen. And in verse 7, it says there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram and the herdsmen of Lot, because the land was essentially too small, and they both, with all their people, all their livestock, all their riches, the land it wasn't enough to sustain both of them to live. So Abraham said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right, or if you go right, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that is well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go toward Zorah. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated from each other, him separating from Abraham or Abram. And Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom, or towards Sodom. And then in verse 13 of chapter 13, it says, but the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. Now, as I was looking at that, I don't know if it stuck out to me because it said the men of Sodom. And knowing the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, knowing that the men were the ones trying to sleep with the angels, it gives me a pretty solid point that there, and I'd have to touch up on Sodom and Gomorrah, but there, it says the men. It doesn't say the man of Sodom. And usually when it says man, it means mankind. And usually when it says men, it means men as in masculine, men as myself. So with the Bible telling us that they were wicked, for me, it's assumed that Lot also knew that when he chose it. But he chose it because of how it looked, disregarding the reputation of Sodom and Gomorrah. But all this happened because Abram got his wife to lie about a situation that didn't need to be lied about. So he went backwards in his journey instead of constantly going forward because of a situation he put himself and his wife in. So here we are. We have God telling Abram what to do. Abram being the leader because God's communicating straight with him. He's saying, go, leave your family, leave your country, and I'll take you where you need to go. They start going smoothly, to the best of my knowledge, because nothing's brought up about it not going smoothly. They pitch a tent between Bethel and Hai, and Abram gives an altar up unto the Lord because the Lord says, I'll give you this land to your descendants. They get to Egypt. Abram gets fearful and acts in his own knowledge and tells his wife to lie about them being married. Egypt gets plagued. Pharaoh gets upset. He has words with Abram. They get kicked out of Egypt. They go back to the altar between Hai and Bethel. And because of that, the land's not big enough to sustain Lot, Abram, Sarah, and all that they have. So they end up splitting. It tells us that Sodom, or the area in the plains of Jordan, the people of Sodom were wicked, thus for letting us know, or at least alluding to, that Lot also knew that information. So because Abram lied, or told his wife to lie, not only did they go backwards in their journey, but he caused his nephew to be in a situation that essentially he didn't need to be in to begin with. So that also just raised some, I just noticed that as I was reading. But even still, God is faithful in everything that he says. And if we go down a little bit further towards the end of the chapter 14 through 18, it says, and the Lord said to Abram, after Lot is separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I give you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and through its width, for I give it to you. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth tree of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord. So a key word in that small bit of text is when God said, for all the land which you see. Not all the land that is northward, eastward, southward, westward. He said all the land in which you see. And I think that's very important because God's very particular how he says things, because what he says is what he means. So he says, whatever you see, that is yours, and that's your descendants forever. Not everything that's over there, not everything that the light touches, like it says in Lion King, everything in which you see is yours. And it's the fact that after Lot departed, God decided to tell Abram this. And I don't know why it had to be afterwards. I that I don't understand. But if there's strife between the two, I'm sure having that information with the way Abram acts as prior to this situation where he acts in his own knowledge, it could have been that God knew that Abram may have brought that up to him in the course of the argument. I don't know. We'll never know because we weren't there. But just me assuming when there's strife between two people, and it tells us that in chapter 13 and verse 2, Abram was very rich in livestock and silver and in gold. So he wasn't a broke, poor individual. Abram had riches. So it wasn't that he necessarily needed for anything. So we know that just based off of having money and power and riches in today's world, based off the people that we've seen in the media, that tends to give people the inflated egos, inflated sense of self-righteousness, self-worth. And with that, it could be a strong possibility that's why God didn't allow Abram to have that knowledge in that given situation. But even still, after them going backwards because of the lie, God still chose to give Abram and his descendants land that Abram saw in the midst of his mistake. And it never even says that Abram apologized or asked for forgiveness for asking his wife to lie. So it's what I got out of the culmination of these two chapters is that God's very straightforward on what he wants us to do. And you have two choices. Either you can adhere to it, and it may not be an easy route. It may not be a fun route. It may not be a joyous route as far as going against no repercussions, no pain, no kickbacks. Excuse me. But when you try to operate and try to add little side events in his plan, you're gonna end up hurting yourself. So what I mean is, so I wrote the journey of chapter 12 and 13. Take these off. They started in Haran, and then they go to the land of Canaan, which is to be presumed a cursed land because Canaan's a cursed individual. Then they go to Shechem, and then they go beside a tree of Moreh, in which the Canaanites dwelt. And then that's also where no, that's not yet. And then after that, they moved to a mountain east of Bethel, and then he pitched his tent between Bethel being to the west and Hai on the east, and that's where he built the altar unto the Lord. Then they went south towards Egypt, and then they went back to in between Bethel and Hai after being thrown out to Egypt. And then Abram went west by the trees of Mamre, which reside in Hebron, in which he built another altar to God, as Lot went to the east, in which Sodom and Gomorrah resided. So instead of just having gone straight until wherever they needed to go, and I'm sure we'll find out where exactly he ends up and the future of going through Genesis, he had to go back. And we don't know the amount of time he spent in Egypt. We don't know the amount of time that he spent in between the mountain of Bethel and of Hai. We don't know the course of time that it took for him to travel from all these places, but we do know that he caused himself more time instead of getting straight to the point. But I also feel like God allowed that to happen because he knew Sodom and Gomorrah were wicked. And he knew that Abram was going to get Sarah to lie about that situation. And he knew that Abram was going to have to go backwards. And he knew all these things that were going to happen in order for him to fix all the things that man had messed up until this point again. Because this is after the flood. This is after the so-called doing away of all the evil things that God was already disgusted with to begin with. So you got the flood, you got Noah getting drunk after the flood, you got his son Ham essentially making fun of him and telling his brothers. Noah finds out, he curses his grandson Canaan. Canaan gets this cursed land. You get Abram, who's told to move from all of these different places. And even in the land of Canaan, God promises Abraham or Abram, I don't know. I'm just going to call him Abraham because it's the same person. But in sake of keeping up with the text, Abram here, he promised him to give him this cursed land. But why would you want to give a man cursed land? Because if God is with you, he makes all things new. So it's no longer a cursed land. It's a land where things can be fixed, things can be renewed, restored. So all the people that would have died and fell into chaos and essentially went to hell now have a chance. Whereas if they didn't traverse all these lands and make these mistakes, then there's essentially no room for God to come in, because God doesn't force relationship. He doesn't force you to seek him. He doesn't force you to find him. Just like he didn't force Abram to leave. He just told him to go. Now, whether Abram chose to go or not is essentially his choice. But with that choice, it gives God that door to move through Abram to save other souls. And it just makes me think about just life in general. And I brought it up earlier, where you're living comfortably, you're living well, and you start going through all these situations, you start going through all these hardships, and you're wondering, I thought you were taking me, you as in God, were taking me to a place where I could flourish, where I could be better than where I was. And he is. But there's also people there who need you there so God can save them as well. And I don't know why God chose Abram outside of building that bloodline so where he could birth himself, Jesus. But in regard to us, I don't know why he chooses us to go through certain situations for the sake of other people. I don't know why we have to go through Egypt. I don't know why we have to go through the land of Canaan, all these cursed places to essentially have God save souls through us. But and me and Aunt KB talked about this. If he would have told Abram that you're going to encounter the Pharaoh, you're going to encounter people that want to kill you, you're going to encounter strife between your nephew, you're going to encounter having to fight against Canaanites and people in Sodom and Gomorrah, you're going to come through a situation where I ask you to sacrifice your son for my sake. Would he really have left, knowing all that pain was to follow, knowing that God was gonna tell him, or I'm not sure how the story goes, I gotta refresh, but when the angel came and said that Sarah would have a child after being barren for X amount of years, if they knew that, if God revealed all of that, would he really have left? because the act of knowing that trouble is coming tends to deter our faithfulness. Because even if God would have said, through all of this, I'll be with you, which he tends to do anyway, would he still have left? Because he tells him that he's going to bless him, and he's going to bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. And he still got his wife to lie in Egypt because he got afraid. And if you look at it, like, he wasn't doing it for Sarah's sake. He was doing it for his. So what if they would have killed Sarah? Did it not matter to him as long as he stayed alive? Because it says in chapter 12:13, please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. Never in any of this concept of text does it say that we shall be well. It says that I. So he was acting very impulsively and selfishly and not thinking about his wife at all, which a man should never put himself where he doesn't take care of his wife. And in this situation, he did not take care of his wife whatsoever. May it be because he was afraid, it's still, he gave in to that impulse. So if God would have told him all these things were going to come, just like with Peter, he told him he was going to deny him, and Peter's like, I would never do that. And then it happened anyway. Some things just aren't designed for us to know for the sake of us not disobeying. But in that, we still have a window of not following what God asks us to do. And sometimes it's not as laid out and plain as God telling you to go and leave and get away from everything that you've known. Sometimes it's just somebody comes up to you and says that they're having a rough day, or their son or daughter, whatever the situation is. You don't have to necessarily pour out the whole Old Testament or New Testament to them at that time, but you know that you have the power of prayer. So you could even pray for them in your mind when they walk away in your quiet room or whatever. But that is also a situation for you through God, or God through you, to be that the essentially that light that they may never ever see again. Now obviously you have to operate in the spirit, and you don't just go around praying for everybody, because there's a place and time for everything. But I think this just reminds me of that everything's a choice, and God's pretty particular on what he says, what he promises, and the words that he uses are very, very, very meticulous. He doesn't use vain words. He doesn't use anything that he doesn't mean, and everything is pretty precise to the point. For that reason, so that there is no room for error. There is no room for you to go back and say, well, I thought you meant. It doesn't matter what you thought he meant. What he said was, I'll give you this land that you see. I'll bless those who bless you. I'll curse those who curse you. I'll give you this land and your descendants. He was pretty clear on everything that he told Abram and everything that he commanded Abram. But just like human beings get in our own way sometimes, actually a lot of times, and because of that, he made his journey a lot longer than it needed to be. But even with that, God still used that situation to mold Abram to who he needed to be. And as we go further, you'll see that, like I brought up about the birth of their child, and when Sarah tells Abram to sleep with his, I think her name's Hagar, his servant, and that happens after this. So even after all God has done up until that point, they still operated in fear in their own knowledge, which caused more problems. More people got hurt. More strife was probably ensued. So every time you disobey and every time you go about your own way, sure, God can fix it. Sure, God may come in and intervene and course correct it. But now he has to fix somebody else's feelings, fix somebody else's pain, because you wanted to essentially be God in that situation and run things how you felt like they needed to be run. Because you, or we as humans, live in a very finite reality. We only know what's happened and we only know what's going on. We can't see where the roads are going to lead. We can speculate, but there's no way of us actually knowing. And that's kind of what I got out of these two chapters. But I also feel like these two chapters set up everything that's going to happen between Abram through the line of David, through the line of Solomon, through the line of all these others that lead up to Jesus. And then a lot of these things that happen that Jesus spoke about, the parables, are actually going back unto these old people, these stories of the past. Any thoughts?
I think that.
No, it's just you.
Okay, I think when we sin, it makes it harder for us. And the Lord is still merciful, but I think it would have been a lot easier if we would have just not sinned. And I think when we sin, it makes it harder for us, obviously. But I think things may have been easier for him had he not sinned. And it's just a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Did anybody else have any thoughts or questions or comments over these two chapters? Anything that spoke to you as an individual? Nope.
I think you did a good job covering it.
Thanks. Anything? Anybody know? Okay. I'm keeping notes of everything that we go up to since we started. So this is just my thoughts. I think that we should probably keep going through Genesis, and then once we get to the end of Genesis, try to tie everything together, and kind of formulate where we want to go through or past that point. So that way we'll have like a roadmap, and then we'll have things on paper to where we can easily connect things that happen later on in the Bible back to the beginning source of everything that's happened. What are you all's thoughts about that? Does that work for everybody? No? Yes?
It works for
Hmm?
me. It works for me.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to hear those symbols that you have been referencing, because there were a lot of them that I didn't know, and I think that's very important. And a lot of the things that have done, I mean, we do ignorantly.
Mm-hmm. Like symbols that I've told you about in like our conversations.
Right.
Okay.
All those.
Yeah.
And the idols that people don't even realize are idols.
All right. Well, let me screen share this real quick.
And Abraham came from a land of idols.
Mm-hmm. Ma, you here? Ma. Okay. Zoom in. There is one thing that I came across, and I'll read it out, NKB, because I know your situation. But in Psalm 23, where it says, "You anoint my head with oil," it says that I was listening to some tape, this video on YouTube, and it says that a lot of stuff that David talked about in Psalms were like similes and metaphors for his situations that he encountered as a shepherd, as a king, and throughout his life. But it says shepherds would anoint sheep with oil to protect them from flies and other insects that would get in their face. The oil would repel the insects and soothe the sheep, helping them to become peaceful again. Insects would often try to lay eggs on the moist membranes of the sheep's nose and ears, which would distract the sheep and cause them to become obsessed with keeping the bugs away. It said also that in the video that these flies and these other things, insects, would lay eggs in the sheep's brain, and they would beat their head against like walls of stone in order to try to appease that pain, and a lot of them would get killed. So they said the semblance of David saying that is the oil is to protect him from the flies, from the enemy, because Beelzebub means Lord of the flies, and so that's like a metaphor, a simile of like God protecting you from things that would get implanted into you that would drive you insane. Because once Satan gets in your mind, it's kind of it's a war, because most battles happen from within anyway. But what could I show you all? So there is one thing that was brought to my attention. So the cardinal directions are north, N, east, E, south, S, west, W. So if you write it down on paper, is there any particular word that you get out of that? So write N down first. So write north, then write east, then write west, then write south. And then take the first letter for each word. And what word do you get?
News.
You get the news. So the news is used as a television program. So if you split it and you get tell a vision. So the television is giving you a vision in which they want to tell you the news is on the television. So the news is orchestrated to get you to pretty much essentially believe the vision of someone else. So there's this thing called the Baphomet, and some of these images are going to be grotesque. Zoom in. So, and KB, for your privilege, this is an image of, it's a goat head with a pentagram in the middle of the forehead, 2 horns, angel wings, bare men chest, it's like a serpent encompass on the stomach, which is supposed to symbolize the women reproductive system, and then there's a rod going down to pretty much symbolize a penis, and then there is 2 snakes going around the rod, biting on each side of the rod, symbolizing infinity, making the number 8. And then in his right hand, he is holding it up, the last 2 fingers down, first 2 fingers up, and his thumb is going across to the last 2 fingers. And the same thing for the left hand, except the left hand's going down. So I'm going to keep this symbol up, and then I'm going to show you a couple other things. All right. So if you look at this, it's called a finger gun. Most finger guns are a thumb up and 2 fingers out, but you can do it with 1 finger out. That is essentially the same as the Baphomet holding up 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down, symbolizing that such is above, so is below, meaning that is up, that is down, meaning that Satan is no different than God, that they are essentially one and the same, is what Satanists believe. Satanists believe in a man called Albert Pike. This is an old gentleman who was pretty much the founder of Freemasonry. And he didn't call God by God or Yahweh. He called God Adonai. He also said that Satan is God, but unfortunately Adonai is also God. So it is believed that the 33 degrees of Masonry and then the 13 degrees of the Scottish Rite are all because of this gentleman. And if you remember, I told you about the Chinese number 4. Chinese number 4. The number 4 in Chinese is considered unlucky because it sounds similar to the word death. So there are 13 degrees of the Scottish Rite. 13 is believed to be an unlucky number in America. And I told you all about numerology, where they add things together to get certain results that they want. So if you add 1 and 3 together, you get 4, which is unlucky in Chinese. And then 444, like this, if you write it. Let me move this. I don't need it right now. 444. they say the 444 is an angelic number, is what they call it. But Jay-Z also had an album called 444. And if you flip it upside down, which I cannot do, you get 666. And that is the number of man, the number of the beast. But also, Jay-Z also is a huge believer in Aleister Crowley, which is considered to be the world's most wickedest man. And he was also the person that came up with a lot of words such as eon, and then if you add an A to it, it's pronounced aeon, which is pretty much a demonic summon that you can conjure, like demonic demon you could conjure. And then there's just a lot of things surrounding Aleister Crowley, like the Lima, which is called I'll just pull it up.
The what?
The Lima, THELEMA. There's a symbol that looks like two arrow points, but then they're like intertwined with each other. But I'll also show you the symbol of masonry, and it'll look the exact same. The square and compass is what they call it. So if you look at this, it looks identical to that. Obviously, there's a few things added to give it like a wing emblance. But there's also a card game called Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you look at the symbol of the Lima, there is a card called was it Seal of Orichalcos? And it's the same symbol, except the difference is there's a spell around it in ancient Egypt text, I believe. So they're indoctrinating people through means of trading card games and other forms of media. Seal of Orichalcos, trading card, the Lima. The Lima was also believed to be the famous quote, "Do what thou wilt," and I can show you how Jay-Z's a part of that. Jay-Z, do what thou wilt. He is wearing a hoodie that says, "Do what thou wilt." Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law, meaning that you can do whatever you want. There is no recompense for it. There's no bad, there's no you won't be like judged for it. Is there anything else? Ambulance. Ambulance. So on the side of the ambulance, you have the rod and then the snake going around it. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
And then we go back to the Baphomet, and then there's the rod with the snake. And then take it a bit further, we can look at Hermes. Oh, I didn't know there was a bag called Hermes. This bag's 10 grand.
Wow.
If we look at Hermes, his staff is 2 snakes and a rod. But Hermes is also considered the messenger god. So there's that. There is Olympic torch. You see that torch? It's the same torch that's on the top of the Baphomet's head. And we obviously know what a pentagram is. It's a 5-pointed star that is used to conjure up demons. And then there are rappers who have been caught in 5-pointed stars with Salt Around. A$AP Rocky being one. There he is, music video, pentagram. Playboy Cardi, pentagram. Let's see, rappers, pentagram. This white guy, Tom McDonald, pentagram. Don't want to go too far. Don't know what I'm going to be looking at. So yeah, I mean, it's pentagram, and then there is called the one-eye symbolism. Celebrities showing and let's see here. That's not going to show me what I need. But you got Lady Gaga, you got Samuel Jackson. This guy, he gave up his his left eye to be famous. Fetty Wap. And the semblance of the one eye is it's a symbol of allegiance, showing that allegiance to the one-eyed god Horus, because that is the eye on the back of the dollar bill, on the top of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye. So that's showing that you give allegiance to Horus, Ra, Lizzo, Adele,
the singers.
Yes, ma'am. There's a lot more, but I don't know if I can find it. Even when they do little things like getting a flower and covering their eye, it's all showing you symbolism. Skull and Bones. They recently made a video game out of it, but it's a secret society. With number 322, 322. Last year was considered the year of Skull and Bones. 2023, 0 doesn't count, so you got 2023. You take out the 0 because 0 has no value. You read it backwards. It's 322. Year of Skull and Bones. Obviously, Skull and Bones is associated with death. That's why it's Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones. Yale University. Founded in 1832. And I believe Skull and Bones just had a birthday whenever whenever Milton hit Florida. Let's see. I can't find the exact date. But some notable members of Skull and Bones are William Howard Taft, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and then there's even videos of people questioning George Bush about Skull and Bones, and the dude gets tased and taken out of the building. There's a thing called HAARP, HAARP, and it is pretty much a system designed to control the earth using hypersonic sound. They've developed it for quite some time, but there's technology that they have now that they can hit you with supersonic sounds that can kill you from your inside, and you would never know that that you were like hit, because it'll pretty much bake your insides and you'll just die internally. Which also brings you to chemtrails, which are those airplanes that are always above the sky, dropping that wind, or those cloud looking things. That's a way to formulate, pretty much prime the earth to do whatever it wants. Thus, in which people believe that's what causes all these massive hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis. Magic back then had a K instead of a MAGICK. Most people call it as magic without the K. But Thelema started magic, which you can see the symbol here, which ties you back to Aleister Crowley. Yeah. Witches use every phase of the moon to conjure up some form of magic. The full moon is when they're most powerful. There is a thing called the Sephiroth, and it is called the Tree of Life. So if you look at the color scheme, it reminds you a lot of what's the name of what do they want you to open up in yoga?
Chakra.
Yes. So if you look at the color scheme of the Sephiroth tree, it's the same as opening your chakras. And then the crown is considered the pineal gland. Which is the third eye, which is the Egyptian eye. Egyptian eye. All right, you see that eye? The Pharaoh's eye, Eye of Horus, pineal gland. Looks like an eye, Eye of Horus, and which is why the Egyptians had that eye. They felt like they got knowledge, but really the knowledge came from demonic possession, demonic auras, and demonic takeovers. So a lot of these symbols that you see are not meant for good. really, most symbols that you find are not symbols that are supposed to be inhabited within your confines. But it's so easy to get enamored because some of them can be found on your favorite foods, such as Oreo cookies. See if I can zoom in on that. Can you see this circle around the Oreo? And then there's a line, and then there's a cross. Symbol on Oreo cookie.
I heard about that a couple of years ago.
Well, just found one that shows the Star of David. Satanic crosses, that's what it is. The Oreo cookie symbol. Taco Bell sign. It's a reptilian eye. You can see the that little reptile eye thing right here. If you look at it, you can see it better here, and which is why they changed it to take away the eye, but it's still the same.
Oh, they did?
They changed it to a purple and white symbol. Community coffee. Community coffee just changed their symbol when I was working there a couple years ago, but it used to have an old racist house on it, like a plantation house. They took the house off of it, and the symbol now is just saying family owned ever since 1999 community coffee. And you can see this, people call it an antebellum home, but I mean antebellum homes were slave homes. So yeah. You got sun-kissed. If you look at it, the N should be separated from the U. Let's see if I can get a good image. So it's S, and you can see the distinction between the space between the I, the S, and what's supposed to be a U, but there's no space between this supposed U and this N. But if you look, there's a space between every other letter. So it's assumed that this is supposed to spell sin-kissed and not sun-kissed. S. They make it look like a U, but why is this apparent U separate, or not separate, but all these other ones, all these other letters have distinctions between them? You got Monster Energy drink.
The very name of that.
So the symbol right here is the symbol Vi. There's 3 symbols. It's supposed to make an M, but you can obviously see that that's a symbol, a gash. So I will find the symbol Vi. I think it's a Greek letter. Or is it a Greek number? Hold on. The Roman numeral 6 represents. That's not what I want. Greek alphabet. I'd have to find this one. I don't remember what it is. Let's see. Maybe I can Google it. What symbol is on Monster Energy drink? They'll tell you that it's an M even when you Google it, but I'd have to find exactly what the symbol is, but that symbol means it's Vi, which is 666, and then there's a cross on the O, so when you drink it, the bottom goes up, the cross is inverted. So more demonic imagery that's used to control people.
What's that name?
Ma'am?
What is that on?
Monster Energy drink. Vi is also the sixth, I believe, sixth letter of the alphabet, which is where we get our W. So www dot is World Wide Web, which also, if you take it back to its root or where we got W from, it would be 3 6s. So www dot whatever. So it's 666 dot blah blah blah. Your social security number is basically your barcode, which is how they know how you do everything, what you buy, what you spend, or what you invest in, what you watch, what you essentially think, say, and feel. Is there anything else that I know off the top of my head? I think that's it, but I can find more things and bring it to you all's attention as we go along, but a lot of that stuff, Molech is a Canaanite deity where they sacrifice babies. He's a bull. He was also known as Baal, Balenciaga. Let's see. In Greek. Latin. I haven't done much research, but there's been a trend going around that says Balenciaga, translated from Latin, means Baal is king, or Baal. Baal is a bull-headed deity, which is also the same as Molech, child sacrifice, which is also on the front of your Dodge Rams. There he is, Dodge Ram, Baal himself, Molech himself. And anytime you look at these symbols, it'll say it's something else. Inspired by a charging ram or a bighorn male sheep. Symbols of Saturn. Saturn, the symbol of Saturn. Keep that image in your head. It is a cross that makes an H. Formerly known as Prince. And Prince's symbol is also the symbol for Saturn. It's just altered a little bit. So everything is designed to keep you in line, under control, and perplexed, so that you do not learn of anything. And if you do learn of anything, you're considered crazy, insane, and all these other things. So that is just a tip of the iceberg. But yeah, it's pretty much any symbol that you can find. It has some sort of root to the devil. If you see anything with let's see here. Anything that you have with the symbol FCC on it, it is a government tracking device. So anything that you say around that thing will be tracked, will be monitored. Cell phone, remote controller, watch, cell phone chargers, AirPods, video game controllers, iPads, laptops, cameras. It's all on that stuff. And if you ever like watch an old movie that has like Enemy of the State or anything where the person running gets rid of all their devices, they can't find that person because they don't have anything that they can track them. But now, I'm pretty sure with all this AI technology, like if a camera sees you anywhere, it can make your face out. So there's really no hiding from anything anymore. And there probably never was, but that's just the reality, that all-seeing eye, the eye of Horus. I don't have $1, but I can show you real quick. All-seeing eye. Let's see, dollar bill, back a dollar bill. There is the Eye of Horus. Actually, if you fold the 10, 20, and 50, it shows 9/11 happening. $10. real folding tricks. So right here, that is the start of 9/11. $20. That is the $20, and it's 9/11 falling, getting engulfed. 50. That's all the smoke. No building. And I think the $100 one shows something as well. Okay, the 100 does not. So it's just the 10, 20, and the 50. So, which means all this was planned out way before we even, I think any of us were born. To my knowledge, they have 1,000-year plans. There's something called the Georgia Guidestones, which were destroyed recently. And it says explosion destroys mysterious monumental guidestones. When there's a video, or there was a video, showing somebody pulling the guidestones with trucks and vehicles. What does the guidestone say exactly? All right. Now, they were written in like Greek, Latin, and something else, but they translated to maintain a population of no more than 500 million people, guide reproduction to improve fitness and diversity, Planned Parenthood, unite humanity with a new language, English, use reason to guide passion, faith, and tradition, social media, establish fair laws and just courts to protect people and nations, laws, use a world court to resolve disputes between nations, United Nations, avoid unnecessary laws and officials, never happened, balance personal rights and social duties, okay, value truth, beauty, and love, and strive for harmony with the infinite, LGBTQ, leave room for nature, and don't be a burden on the earth, vegans. So everything that has happened, whether it be LGBTQ, vegans, social media, all these random acts of terrorism or nature or all these other things, everything has been orchestrated for years on how to have people think, feel, and adjust. So yeah, it is all by design. Nothing is an accident. Nothing happens by accident, and nothing ever will happen by accident. Even this, if you look at this guy right here, his name is Sephiroth, which is the tree, and which I showed you earlier. So even in video games, he is implanted. Was it esoteric knowledge, where you don't know what it is, but the people who do it know what it is. So yeah, everything starts from something, and most of it is not good. Minerva is a goddess that usually hangs out with an owl, and owls are considered to be wise, but owls also can turn their heads the full 360. And most of the time when they make demonic movies and people get possessed, the people turn their head 360s, and they're considered wise, and wisdom is what the occult seek, which is where you get the Illuminati, which translates into the enlightened ones. And you can usually tell who's a part of that group because they'll use certain words or they'll stand a certain way. Man, I should just keep this on because I feel like I might have to keep going back to it. There's this thing called the hidden hand. Where you take your right hand and you stick it in your coat jacket. And you can see a couple celebrities, Christopher Walken, Pedro Pascal. I think Will Smith did it after he slapped Chris Rock to let you know that this was all planned. Yep, there it is. Hidden hand. Right after he wins the award. Yeah. What else is there? Oh, Jay-Z throws up the rock. So the rock, Jay-Z throwing it up. Oh, look at that. It's Denzel Washington doing the same thing.
What?
Oprah doing the same thing. Fabulous doing the same thing. One-eye symbolism. Eye of Horus. So with that, Mason symbol. Yep, square and compass. The G is supposed to be for God. So I can't see myself, so let me go here. So if you do that, and you do that, your I is the G. G is supposed to be God. God's supposed to reside in you. Your pineal gland's open, therefore being the God. And it's a square and compass because Masons are considered builders. So they build the world around you. They give you the laws. Let me go back to the back of the dollar bill. Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is Latin. Novus is new, Ordo is order, and Seclorum, I don't know what that means, but let's Google it. Novus. So Novus Ordo Seclorum translates from Latin into a new order of the ages, New World Order, NWO. Where do we hear NWO? I believe Granddad used to watch wrestling all the time, and Hulk Hogan and his group were called the New World Order, NWO. Oh, satanic hand signs. Rock star hand. So this is considered the rock star hand when you put your two middle fingers down, your thumb over your two middle fingers, and your pinky up and your index up. So they also call it devil horns. So why do they call it devil horns? Devil horns because they look like devil horns, and because Anton LaVey, I don't want to pull no pictures up of him. Anton LaVey is the father of Satanism. You can see the pentagram with the bull or the goat head behind him, and he said that is the symbol of the devil horns. All right. So why is that important? Rock stars throw up the devil horns. Who also throws up the devil horns? sign language for love. Is the devil horn. Now, they put their thumb out, but I mean, let's be real. It's the same thing. Celebrities. All right, Jada Pinkett Smith, devil horns. Obama, devil horns. Prince Harry, devil horns. Don't want to go too far because some of this stuff gets. Katy Perry, devil horns. The Pope, the Pope's hat. All right, the Pope's hat, if you look at it from this angle, looks like a fish mouth. Dagon is his name. That's supposed to be the fish god. And if you look closely to this symbol, if I can get it to pull up, hopefully you can see it. It looks very similar to this hat. So, I mean, you can go a step further. Crusade symbol. It is a cross on a shield, or this cross that looks like a very small constricted cross. Exxon gas station. If you look at Exxon, it has two X's, but it looks like they are falling off the sign, which is actually this symbol, which is the Rosicrucian cross. Crucian, I didn't spell that right. Rosicrucian. Yeah, there it is. Small constricted cross. So even the gas stations are telling you who runs the world, and it's not girls, as Beyonce put. So, yeah. It is in video games. It is in TV shows. It is on cars. There's a place called CERN that's trying to open black holes and portals, which is believed that that's how demons like travel from like point A to point B without having to like actually traverse that point. Like if, let's say, Satan wanted to influence the Prince of England, but he's currently at a point where he's in America. Since he's not omniscient, he'd actually have to obviously travel there through some form of space and time. So the black hole would give him a point of entry. And even mausoleum gates, if you look at them, they're built like gateway portals. There's these big, huge towers, same size, and there's usually a gate that closes, and that's usually how they open up for like in mythological movies or books or games. It's always like a beam of light or something that people can pass through and end up transporting to another part in time or another part of the world. So they're using particle crashes to create black holes and portals to summon demons and do all of that stuff. So it is a lot, and that's why a lot of things don't get published. That's why a lot of things get swept under the rug. And if you actually look at a lot of Bible apps, there's scriptures that have been taken out of NIV, NLTs, and I believe even some King James, because they give you an update and then they can just take it out and you'll never know, because if you don't have it memorized, then you don't have it like it's not there. And even in certain Bibles, like physical Bibles, they took the scriptures out.
The new versions.
And that's also why it's hard to find any books on Indian culture or Mayan cultures or all these other cultures that apparently were here and predicted all these things to happen. You can't find books on those cultures anymore. And everything's going digital because if it's digital, there is a fine print that you're not really buying it. You're kind of leasing it out. So if you buy a movie, you buy a game, you buy a book, they can just strip it away from you at any point and you can't do anything about it because it's in the fine print of the contract that you essentially paying to use it for whatever amount allotted time they give you. So yeah, that means any digital degrees you have, any emails, any digital anything can be stripped away at any point, and unless you have physical evidence that it was there and it's time stamped, or you have a physical proof of it, you don't have any argument to say that you ever had it. Even this little sticker, hands up, hands down, as above, so below. It's the same as that little, that demon. Even the dances that come out, the whip and the nay-nay, you whip, and then you nay-nay, one hand's up, one hand's down. There's a dance Beyonce used to do where she would put 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down on one hand. So it's all planned programming. It's all to get you comfortable with everything. That's why all these movies come out that show all these blood and guts and people getting raped and kidnapped. So your mind gets used to it and it becomes a normality. Like for these people that go out and kill people that play X amount of violent video games, they're just numb to it because they said your brain can't determine what's reality and what's not reality. You as a person can, but your brain doesn't understand that that's a video game and you just shout up X amount of people on Call of Duty. Your brain's gonna register it as you killed X amount of people on Call of Duty. So if a person goes out and does it, the remorse factor is kind of not there anymore because it's been kind of replaced with quote unquote entertainment. Which I think that's what it also alludes to when it says the odds of the gate, when people say the odds of the gateway to the soul. Because everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you say is grounded in these spiritual gates. Now there's a pastor that people don't he's probably not a good pastor, but he has said something that there's a reason why you have two of most things and one mouth is because you're supposed to observe and listen more than you talk. You have two ears, you have two eyes, you have two nostrils, two hands, 2 feet. Usually you have two of everything. And that those are all gateways for spirits and demons, whether good spirits or bad spirits and demons, to inhabit you. So like when you hear people swear or use foul language, if you hear it over and over and over again, you're going to get not necessarily comfortable with it, but it'll be to the point where you won't go against it as often. Like now, back in the day, people couldn't say God, D word, and get away with it, but now it's like the most popular word people use. But if you ever say anything against like Buddha or Shiva or any of these other people in these other countries, they'll kill you. No trial, no stance against anything. So that does bring me to a point. I was watching this thing about witchcraft and how these are just some words you can write down and just think about it as you go about the week. Weekday, weekend, job. I can just show you. I'm tripping. But all like the English language is all comprised of spells. And that's why so many words. Can y'all see that? Am I sharing?
Yes.
All right. Morning. All right. So morning sounds like morning. So good morning. What are you mourning? Mourning someone's death. Weekday. You're weak during the day. Weekend. You're weak during the end of your days. Job translation. Let's see. What does job mean? Let's see. And Hebrew. Let's see, so it must be Greek. So job translates from Greek to mean exhausting labor. After you work for X amount of time, you get earnings, or you earn. Once you're dead, you're put in an urn. Now keep in mind, back then, these words didn't exist. They were something else, but they had different meanings entirely. Just like there's multiple ways you could say love back in the day. Like, what is it? Hagios and all these other... There's different loves that mean different things. Like love for your brother, love for your sister, love for your aunt, love for your mom or your spouse. But in English, love means all of these things, but it's one word. So there's no separation between the meaning. Um, and what the guy was saying was he was an ex-warlock, and he was saying that people use these words, and these witches and warlocks would put these. What is that? These witches and warlocks would is my camera messing up? Would put these spells on people, and like when they would say certain words, it would give demons these contracts to come in and take over, and it'd be people that you'd see work super super hard, but like always revert backwards in life. He was saying you would hear people say, "Well, I gave them a piece of my mind." Well, what you meant was you let them have the words you were feeling, but in reality, the verbal contract is you saying, I gave them a literal piece of my mind. Or that makes me sick, and then people get sick. Or I'm so tired of doing this, and then when you go somewhere, you're tired of doing that. So every word gives precedence to either a life or death. Says that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and then God will judge every idle word. So all that stuff is like verbal contracts. You going into a contract. Think of it as every time you say something, you're signing a deal to take a cell phone or whatever. So I can't do this anymore. You're signing a deal with the spirit of whatever that's assigned to that. And you just find yourself not being able to push forward past these certain situations. Or I hate this marriage, or I hate my wife, or I hate my husband. And then there comes this friction over time that gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah, so all that, every word that you utter is either given precedence for you to dig deeper into the pit, or it's giving you keys to unlock what God really wants for you in the span of your life. And I think that's also why it says, speak of these things as if they are. How's the verse go on KB?
Romans 10:17. Abraham called those things which be not as though they were.
Right. 10:17 Romans. Yeah, because of because it works either way, whether you use it's a positive connotation or a negative. And even in Ecclesiastes, it tells you not to curse. It tells you not to eavesdrop on people because they might be cursing you, and you know that you've cursed other people in the past. So even in that vein, like you've probably cast spells on people without knowing it. Like, I hope they get what's coming to them. I hope they fail. I hope this. I hope that. That is you giving a contract to whatever demons associated, whatever you want to happen to whatever person, to go in and do that. So that's a form of witchcraft, which is a form of weaponry, which is spiritual warfare. But just because we can't see it and everything's made to look like, how did this accident happen? When you think about it, there's no accidents. All these accidents are caused because somebody said something to somebody at some point, and then that contract came to be fulfilled. So when people say the devil came to collect, that's what they mean. That contract was set in stone X amount of years ago, days ago, and then people get sick out of nowhere, or people get diseases out of nowhere, and that's just that contract that either that person or somebody put on that person comes to be contractually obligated to be fulfilled. So yeah. It's everything that's said and uttered is us giving leeway either to God or to Satan and his forces to come in and do whatever they want to do. And that ties in back to Sarah lying to the Egyptians about being Abram's wife. That contract was completed. They found out. He got kicked out of Egypt. It could have been worse. They could have killed him for lying about it. But obviously God allows certain things to happen even if we deserve worse than what we get by giving up these contracts. But were there any more questions? Any thoughts or questions on those symbols that I can answer? I know it was a lot, but they all kind of fall in the same bloodline of craziness.
And they even have codes and stuff for pedophilia and trafficking. Like, it's all connected. That's why the Lord said pray without ceasing, because something is always going on spiritually that we don't see.
Yeah, there was this thing called Pizzagate where they were selling children at pizza spots, and these rich people would call in and be like, I want 2 pepperoni pizza with olives, and that would tell that person what kind of child that they wanted. And then Ashton Kutcher went to before some powerful organization in the government and brought it to their attention, but he was also at Diddy parties, and Diddy was known to have children at those Diddy parties. So now all that stuff that he said is being kind of like swept under the rug because, like, obviously you would know because you're involved with it. And even in Hollywood, just like in old English times where there were arranged marriages, all those marriages in Hollywood are arranged for them to have satanic children, and they'll like have conception during the full moon or blood moon, and that'll create like a vibrational rip throughout the spiritual cosmos. And that's why certain people like in Hollywood have like this demonic looking aura because of how they were conceived or how they're dealing with the certain spirits. Like Kanye West started off by talking about Jesus walks, and now he's partnered with Jay-Z. But even he was saying that the stuff that Jay-Z was doing was wrong, and he admitted like a year ago that his mom was sacrificed because of his involvement in the industry. And I recently found out that you don't even have to agree to have somebody sacrificed. Once you join that legion, it's really not your decision anymore. So yeah, but you also have to make a certain amount of money to even get to the point where they even start doing that stuff or sign certain contracts. So when you see these people sign these $50 million, $20 million contracts, that's a sign that somebody around them is about to get killed. Like the Ja Morant basketball player. He got suspended from the Grizzlies for X amount of time after he signed a $50 million contract. Anybody else they would have fired. They would have got kicked out of the NBA. But now he has a sneaker deal. He's got these commercials. And nobody around him's died yet. But it usually comes shortly after they have like a big stream of success. This is Kanye with his mom, T.I. and his friend, Busta Rhymes and his friend, Adele and her marriages. What's the lady that was Fantasia? The lady that her whole family got killed. The singer.
Jennifer Hudson.
Yeah, her. Everybody around Whitney Houston. Yeah, so it's and then if you try to expose anything about that, they either kill you, kill your image, or get it to the point where you like die from some random disease or some stuff nobody's ever heard of. But celebrities never die from like old age. They die from pneumonia, aneurysm, drugs, psychosis, suicide, and then they're always alone when they die. No one ever like dies with them, or no one's ever with them when they die. Just like the whole thing with Bruce Willis having dementia all of a sudden, but then you hadn't heard about it, but his ex-wife Demi Moore is taking care of him. But Demi Moore was also in a relationship with Ashton Kutcher, but Ashton Kutcher was also at the Diddy parties. Yeah, so like all of those people that's making these millions of dollars, is not one of them that isn't doing that stuff. And they can say they left the parties early. They can say that they had no recollection. But you don't get to be that rich and famous without doing deals with the devil. And I used to think that was false until I started making films. And I would see producers flying in women, promise them movie roles and sleep with them, and then fly them out the next day. And then the movie wouldn't even get made. And then all these women with body alterations come in and try to get a role, and then it just never happened. So it's most of those people do drugs, drink loads of alcohol, sleep with each other, swear a lot. Nothing positive tends to happen from those conversations. And then if you go against anything that they do on set, you get blacklisted, so nobody ever works with you again. And I've been blacklisted before. So I know how it goes. But yeah, so it goes down from Oprah to Tyler Perry to Denzel Washington to all these people that some of them you obviously can tell, but then others like Denzel Washington, it's kind of a shock because you don't really ever see him in the news doing anything. But yeah, they said he was at Diddy parties. And I'm sure more people will be outed soon because they need a lot of this stuff with the election to go as smoothly as possible. You got all the rappers endorsing Kamala Harris, and rap is considered to be like black people's music. And she's going off as to be a black person, which has already been proven that her mom was Caucasian and her dad's Indian. And there's been people that
I think that's the other way around.
No, her dad's Indian.
He's Jamaican.
Her dad?
Mm-hmm.
No, her
A
dad.
Caucasian, and the mother was Indian. But she says that she's black. She doesn't say that anymore because it's been disproven.
Oh yeah, he is Jamaican. Jamaica man. Yeah, he doesn't even like align with it because he said he doesn't agree with racial politics. But yeah, that is the world that we live in. And then there's a bunch of bunch of TV shows and movies before 9/11 happened that showed little semblances of 9 with the 11 next to it. Like it'll be 9 cents in somebody's hand, and then a, like right behind it, 2 wands making 9/11. So everything that happens is shown or said because they believe in some form of karma where they tell you what's going to happen, then they wipe their hands of it. Order out of chaos. They give you chaos so they can give you order afterwards. But all of it's witchcraft, so even the Legend of Zelda, the Triforce is just another form of masonry. It's let's see if I can find it. Nothing's safe is pretty much what I'm telling you. Like there is no There it is. See? He's even making the hand symbol.
What was that?
So Legend of Zelda, it's a Nintendo game. Link, he's an elf, and there is this thing called the Triforce, which gives them kind of like power. But it's 4 triangles. It's 3 gold ones on the outside, and then there's a blank one, a blank white one that's missing a piece in the middle. But it's the same design as the compass and scale of masonry.
Ignorance is not bliss.
Nope. And there's a book called The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, and it talks about the circles of hell, purgatory, and then heaven. But he got kicked out of Rome either right before or right after he wrote that poem, because he was detailing all the corruption of the Roman politics back then, and all these people that he found in hell. And that's where they get Dante and Virgil from, if you've ever heard those names together, because Dante is the poet and Virgil is the guide that took him through the layers of hell, purgatory, and heaven. So I think it's Purgatorio and Paradiso is purgatory and heaven, and then I think hell is called something else because they didn't use hell. I think it was some other P word. It wasn't a pit, but it was it's written in like King James Old English. Judas is there, Brutus is there, and it says that Judas is getting the worst punishment of any sinner throughout the history of time for betraying Jesus. So everything is based off old occultic, demonic principles. Even there's been a lady that came out recently saying that these underground tunnels are actually underground civilizations where they'll have like grocery stores, they'll have Walmarts and gas stations and all these other things, and it's pretty much they'll have sex auctions where they put people on display, and these people spend X amount of money and they buy them, they sleep with them, they stick them back on the rack, and somebody else can buy them, sleep with them, stick them back on the rack. Most of them are children. Yeah, most of them are children. But Aleister Crowley, the guy I showed you earlier, his whole thing with Thelema is magic was that's how you obtain magic. One was sodomy and sex magic, which is where we get anytime people say the freaks come out at night, it's a full moon, the crazies are about to come out. Usually that's when witches do all that super powerful magic and like cursed lands and things like that. Especially if there's a harvest moon, a blue moon, a red moon, magic's real powerful. But having sex with children anally is what he said is the strongest form of magic that you can achieve. And they said anytime you see like children that have black eyes, a lot of time it's because they've been sodomized and they haven't been beat up. But they said that's anybody. Like if somebody hasn't physically been punched in the face and they have a black eye, it's usually because of sodomy, because of the pressures trying to find a way to escape. And there's a song by this guy called Designer, and it's Panda, and he's just saying panda, 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 and he's talking about sodomy. That whole letting you know what it is so they can wipe their hands clean of whatever karma that may come because they're telling you what it is. So yeah.
Try to hide it anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty evident. In some movies you can see which sign in. If there's ever like some kind of weird symbols in a movie title, it's probably which sign. Anywhere that there's a lot of like disturbance or whatever, a lot of water, there's usually a lot of witches. Like Florida, that's where a lot of sex trafficking happens. Port of Miami, any ports typically is where children are often sex trafficked. And I'm pretty sure that's why they poisoned the water in Flint, to make people complicit. Then there was an incident with the bath salts to turn people into zombies. So all of it has to do with magic, sex, and witchcraft, which all falls into the same category of demonology.
Are you familiar with the series Witcher or something like that?
Yes, ma'am. Geralt.
Is what?
The main character's name is Geralt of Rivia.
I don't know. I just heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
And also Agatha.
Agatha all along. The woman that taught Wanda Maximoff how to use her powers.
I just heard about them and I heard they were not good.
They said Agatha all along, they are actually using real witchcraft spells. And it came out about 10 years ago that all the spells that they used in Harry Potter were actually real spells as well.
Yeah.
But most of that stuff is in Latin, which is why it's a dead language, so you can't learn it unless you're a part of that group, which makes sense why I was put in those classes, because I wasn't supposed to take Latin. I was supposed to take Greek, and then they canceled the Greek classes, and Latin was the only like foreign one left. And that's when I learned that there's just certain words that you can't translate to English. Like data is not an English word. Diva is also not an English word. Diva means goddess. So when someone says you're acting like a diva, they're saying you're a goddess, which means that you're a demon. Deus Ex Machina, God in the Machine, which is what they're trying to do to make these AI live forever. It's basically Babylon all over again, trying to reach godhood. So everything, like Jesus said, the days of Noah. You got people, same-sex marriages. You got people sleeping with animals. You got people kidnapping people and sacrificing them. Child sex trafficking. Idol worship. Idols being the celebrities. You got people like Kanye West saying he's a god. Like the word God means nothing to the standard person. Like there's no reverence for it. Jesus Christ is not like a person. It's more like a euphemism for a swear word. Yeah, so actually that's where we get the word sodomize from, is Sodom and Gomorrah, because they were known for men sleeping with men. So there is nothing new under the sun, and everything that is done in the dark has started to be revealed in the light. Actually, it probably always was. You just had to find it. So I think when Jesus speaks, like I said earlier, everything that he said, he meant. But just because it's translated in English, we have to find the multiple meanings. Seeking, you should find. Seek knowledge, you find it. Seek God, you find it. Seek wealth, you find it. Seek sorrows, you find it. Seek revenge, you find it. So English is really the crux of what has ruined a lot of the relationships with God, because it's a culmination of pretty much every language that's ever existed. But was there anything else before we got off today? All right. Well, I will pray for us and let you all enjoy the rest of your day. God, thank you for this opportunity, for the revelation of this knowledge that you've given to me, that I can impart with my family. I don't know the goal of going through hard times. I don't know the goal of suffering. I don't know the goal of a lot of things. But I just ask that in the midst of not understanding, in the midst of confusion, in the midst of being lost within our own thoughts and our own perceptions of what we think may be the truth, that you stand by us, you pick us up, you give us those wings like eagles when we're tired. As we've established today, that the words that you say stand and they won't return until you void. And I just ask that you give us eyes to see through the darkness, eyes to see through the deception that's been set before us with the English language, with these symbols, with these such so-called entertainment. And that every time that we dive into the Bible, that something's revealed to us, that we learn, and that we can express that to each other, so that we sharpen each other like iron, and that you don't pass us by when the time comes. And just give us the strength to stand when times are hard, even if they aren't hard in reality, but stand hard to us spiritually, and just keep us in that whole armor. the breastplate, the sword, the shield, the helmet. Keep us covered. Just thank you for allowing us to get together, and I just pray that you spoke through me today and everything was received, and that it lies within us, and that it comes up whenever we need it, because everything that's precious is starting to get deleted, whether it be through the means of social media, the means of social interaction, the internet, people just coming in and wiping out history. I just ask that your word stands as it always has. In the holy name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all.